Hi, my name is Rachel Finazzo, and today is not going to be me doing anything except for talking. I just got done with my lunch shift. I am a waitress, and let me tell you, this was one of those shifts that definitely shaved a few minutes off of my life. So because of that, I was just like really stressed out and really kind of down on myself. But then I started thinking about it, and I asked you guys on Twitter what you wanted to see, and the response was overwhelmingly this. The whole reason I suggested it was because I sort of started to think about how bad of a waitress I used to be. There was about a year and a half where I went through 3 different waitressing jobs. So definitely that's definitely not good. That was all during the year when I was 18, turning 19. I was an anxious little butterfly. Actually, no. Like, I was also very clumsy, like a baby giraffe. Actually, no. Like a nervous donkey, like destruction everywhere in its path, hee-hawing and kicking things all over the place and not meaning to, but they're just nervous. Pooping everywhere, probably. Oh, I didn't poop anywhere. Maybe like a nervous goat. I feel like a nervous goat still poops when it's nervous. That's probably not gonna go in the video. Let's go with donkey, a nervous donkey, okay? Anyways, especially in the first restaurant that I worked at, I had some really bad days. And today I'm going to tell you one of those days. I don't know if I should tell you the name of the establishment because I don't want to be held liable for any of the mistakes that I made, but I will just say that the restaurant that I was working in was a popular Italian chain restaurant. I feel like there's only one of those. Anyways, I used to get really anxious when one of my managers was around, and he was just this intimidating man and was actually a very encouraging manager now that I think about it. He was just so good at his job, and I just knew that I was not good at mine. It just caused some problems. Like, whenever he was working, the nervous donkey was just like unleashed. Okay, so now that you have some context, I'm going to tell you about probably the worst day that I have ever had as a waitressing woman. Let's start at the top, shall we? This was one of the first days that I was ever asked to open the store. Now, if you don't know what that entails, it sort of means that you have to set everything up, all of the drink machines, have to restock everything, just get the restaurant ready to accept customers. With that being said, the manager that scared me so much, he was working that morning, and I had been told what I needed to do. I was doing everything that I was supposed to, and everything was going well, and then I got asked to move a tea urn. So when I went to grab the tea urn, it was kind of heavy. I dropped it on the ground and didn't tell anybody. But I thought everything was fine. I really did. I wasn't worried about it. No one seemed to notice, and so I just put it where it needed to go. And then I proceeded to fill up the tea urn. Now, what you might not know is that there are 2 things that are really very important to keep in mind when you're filling the tea urn. The first would be to make sure the nozzle is shut when you're filling up the tea urn, and the second would be to make sure that the nozzle is on when you are filling the tea urn. So, as the tea urn started to fill, I wasn't gonna watch it fill up, so I walked away to go do some other productive things. And when I came back, I realized that a small pond had been born right underneath where the tea urn was. Now, if we go back to those 2 things, the first was to make sure the nozzle was closed. The second was to make sure the nozzle was on. Neither of those things were happening. The tea was just coming out of the machine and then out of the container because the nozzle had fallen off when I had dropped the tea urn. So obviously I turned off the tea making machine, I ran and picked up the nozzle, and then cleaned up the mess the best that I could. And, oh God, proceeded to put another tea bag in, resume the process. Now, if you recall those two things to remember when filling up a tea urn, make sure that the nozzle is closed. On, closed. The nozzle was on now. Was it closed? No, it was not. So I come back, this time to a lake that had completely covered the tile floor, because it turns out that there is also a third thing that you had to remember with this specific tea urn, which is that the tea machine doesn't turn off by itself. I heard the sound of tea hitting the floor, so I ran in and slipped and fell completely on my back in the tea. So all the tea molecules and the dirt molecules on the floor all were teeming inside of my hair. It was absolutely disgusting. And that was at 9:30 in the morning. Oh God. So somehow I managed to clean everything up. I closed the nozzle. I made sure the nozzle was very tightly on. And this time I literally watched the tea urn fill up. I sat there and I watched it. So, at this point, all of the back of my clothes are soaking wet. My hair has tea in it, so I quickly realized that this was not going to be my day. So, I'm like waiting tables, making a bunch of little mistakes, which meant that I was not making as much money as I probably could have been. Oh my goodness. The scandal. Anyways, when you start the day out not making as much money, it sort of makes the rest of the day's tables feel like they have to count more. So, like the second half of the day, I am just really trying my best, which is already not very good at this point. I remember a pasta dish taking like a really long time. I went over to the cooks and I was like, hey, I'm missing this pasta dish. Oh my God, wait, I think it's that right there. And this cook looks at me and goes, yeah, I've got it right here. It's all yours if I can get your number. Sorry, I think there was just like a glitch in the matrix. I just want my pasta. That's all. I didn't ask for much. I'm asking for you to do your job so that I can do mine. First of all, you're 37. You've almost got 20 years on me. I don't see how this is a good plan for either of us. Like, let's think a literal best case scenario here, okay? So I give him my number reluctantly, but then we, go out a couple of times and we fall in love. Great. You're still 37 years old, so you've literally almost got 20 years on me, which means that theoretically you're gonna die about 20 years before I do. So I'm just not seeing where the logic is here. So as I have, carefully thought out this whole scenario in my head, I politely decline and I say, I'm sorry, no. Can I please have my pasta? Like, here's the thing, the pasta is not getting cold, it's simply getting dry. This is the food window. The cooks put the food out into the food window and heat lamps are just beating down on it. The moisture in the pasta is just flying out of the pasta because of the evaporation, the molecules, they're escaping. So when I finally get my pasta, I pick up the plate and it is so hot because it's been sitting under the heat lamps for so doggone long and my body has just enough time to react, but before the plate breaks, it lands on my toes like a nice angular doink. So I am now not only all nasty from falling in a lake of tea, I am also injured. And here's the kicker. I finally am making some good money. That table that had the pasta sent out from the devil himself, they loved it. They ordered tiramisu, which is great. And we had this little fridge that we kept all the desserts in. So I see that there's no tiramisu in the fridge. I go into the freezer and get it. So I wasn't just getting out one piece, I was getting out this entire sheet pan worth of tiramisu. And I put it up on top of the fridge because I had to go take care of somebody else. Now, this fridge is right next to the tea urn. And while I think I did a pretty good job of cleaning up the tea, in retrospect, it could have been better. Because when I reached up to get the tiramisu off of the fridge, I had to go up like really close to sort of the like ledge. It was almost like cabinets, you know? There was just there's this little like moat of tea that had formed right under the cabinets. And because I'm not a very tall person, I had to get up really close to these cabinets and stick my feet sort of like almost under the cabinets, right in that little moat. So I had the tiramisu in hand on my tiptoes, and I started to like reposition my feet, but my moat foot sort of was like stuck in a crevice, I guess. I don't really remember exactly what happened. It was all a blur. My feet slipped out from under me, and the tiramisu tumbled down onto my face and all over my shirt and apron. And it was at that point that they sent me home. But the thing is, when you're a waiter, they can't just like send you home because you have to close out all your tables first. So I had to go to all of my tables. Tiramisu was intricately woven into my hair, smears of it all over my body. I had tried to wipe it off. It's got this like creamy custard stuff in it, just like adhering and starting to dry and get all crusty. It was just not a good situation. And my manager was there that I hated. Not hated, my manager was there that I was intimidated by. He didn't fire me, but he sort of like looked at me after I was headed home, and he was like, are you sure you want to be here? And the next week, I decided that I did not. And I moved on to my next waitering job, where the chef was so good at cooking, but just terrible at being a person. So much so that he bought his own knives. And while he didn't cut me with them, he did cut a notch into the handle of one of the knives every time he made me cry, which turned his knife handle into a whittler's dream. I was very incapable and he was very unkind. But then that restaurant got shut down, and now here I am working as a waitress at another place that fits my aesthetic and personality a lot better. I don't know if I should mention the name of this place, but I feel like if you know me, you know that I work there. I'll give you a hint. It is the subject of a very popular Vine where the Adam guy is in what appears to be underwear. He proclaims that you are welcome in this establishment. So I didn't technically tell you where I worked, so now I can tell you stories about it later, and I can't be held liable. Right? Anyways, I hope this was mildly entertaining. It's looking like videos are going to be going up every Tuesday. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Goodbye!